The Mines is hands down one of my favorite game modes in Grand Summoners. It's great. I have some bosses I can fight that are pretty challenging. It has some pretty amazing equips that I might or might not be able to get because, you know, drop rates are a little bit iffy. And I get to actually use units that I do not own because of the Fran unit system, which is also pretty great. But this is also the system that makes me extremely angry. Half of you don't even equip gear onto your units. So look at this guy. I bet you get mad Roblox puss, my guy.
No way.
So, in an attempt to try to make everyone's experience better and my own, especially my own, I wanted to make a video today telling you guys some of the must-have or some of the best friend units to use in the mines, alongside maybe some loadouts or some equips that I would also recommend running on these characters. I'll be trying to include every single type of unit that I can, from damage dealers, status effect characters, to just regular supports. I'll be really trying to cover every single spectrum, so even if you don't have one unit, you may be able to set another unit for your friend unit in the mines. Before we start this, I have a pet peeve, and this may be the hottest take of this entire video. And you know what? I'm not afraid to say it. I'm not. If you have Emperor as your friend unit in the mines, I think that's the worst thing that you could possibly do. You're pretty much making people use a nerfed version of Emperor. The reason why I say this is because Emperor in the mines unfortunately cannot make use of his positional mechanic as a friend unit. You can't make your friend unit Emperor be in the second slot or the third slot or even the first slot. He's forced to be in the last slot, which means he's going to be constantly changing the buff that he's applying to the party, and he may or may not have the 150% damage buff for whatever he's fighting. The only reason why I would see people even selecting Emperor as your friend unit is that if you didn't have him and you just wanted art gauge on the team, but even then I would actually recommend you just use someone like Haruto instead. And even if you're someone that maybe just wants to use an Emperor for damage, there's still better options out there, especially for the mines, which we're going to be talking about those damage dealers in just a second. But yeah, main thing is I wouldn't recommend using Emperor as your friend unit. So who to use? Right, there's a lot of characters in Grand Summoners that are extremely viable in this game mode. That's one of the reasons why I love it so much. However, I think some stand out above the others, especially when it comes to friend units. And why not talk about some of the heavy hitters in the mines? I'm talking about Deadmaster, Simon, and Mikey. So Deadmaster can be used pretty much on every single floor that Simon would be used on, in terms of like, oh, you're fighting the Emerald Bird, well, use Deadmaster and you have the accuracy. Or if you're fighting a Redacne, you could use a Deadmaster instead of using Simon. And the biggest one, you can use Deadmaster against Geo, or the Giant, the Water Giant. He will one-shot anybody that's not a machine or beast or spirit, which of course means Deadmaster is one of the best characters, if not the best character, for that boss specifically. So I highly recommend that if you have Deadmaster, put her on. I guarantee you people are going to be using her, especially if you have some really good equips on her. I'm talking about stuff like Iris True Weapon, maybe the Despair Vine, or another 5-star magic that's going to be able to buff up her damage quite a bit, like True Exceeds X, because I will also provide her some art gauge and some lifesteal. And then for the 4-star support, there's a lot of stuff you can go here, but I would just recommend anything that's going to be buffing up your damage even more. Now, I actually did mention Simon and Mikey, so let's talk about them. Simon is pretty much used in the exact same way Deadmaster is going to be used, but Simon can be used against a multitude of bosses to a greater effect. If you just want to blow up a boss just because why not, you can actually use Simon to clear a lot of the waves because his art is extremely fast, and also it's going to ramp up his damage. Once you get to a boss, you pop his Phantom Bullet, and more than likely if you had his art stacked a little bit, by the time you get to that boss, you're probably going to one-shot them majority of the time, especially if you have some really dope equips on him, like his True Weapon, True Exceeds X, or if you have Nui's Scissor Blade is extremely good as well on him. And then for the 4-star magic, you could use like Nui's Parasol or something like that to give him more dark resist down against the boss. And for the last one, which is Mikey, I would say Mikey is pretty much good in most floors, as long as it's not a boss that negates humans' damage, negates critical damage, and will not one-shot a human. And if they one-shot a human, you could technically use like a tank like Thetis, so you can still bring him to those type of fights. So yeah, he's great in that type of stuff, just because if you build a team around him, use someone on your team, maybe like a Mako and a Haruto or whoever else, you're going to be able to blow up whatever's in front of you majority of the time with just Mikey alone, due to how many buffs that he gives himself. In terms of what to use on Mikey, you can go with stuff that either just gives him more art gauge, like True Izanagi for the 5-star physical, or you can go with something that gives him more damage. I would actually recommend for the 5-star defense going something that kind of helps sustain the team, maybe like Flambardo. And for the 5-star support, just run any type of AoE arch item like the Limbs Close, Goku Uniform, even Mikey's Jimbei if you really wanted to, anything like that, and you should be good. Now the next two characters could have fell into the last category, but I consider these guys the all-stars, the mines specific units, and those units are Cosmo and Joker Celia. Cosmo, of course, the newest to the scene and is actually pretty good. She's definitely not as good as Joker Celia, but still extremely viable, especially against Palamecia. If you're able to get her stacked, which majority of the time, especially on higher floors, you're going to be able to max out her stacks instantaneously, and you're just going to be hitting ridiculously hard. The worst part about Cosmo is that she doesn't do much for her team, so she really is just a all-out damage dealer. In terms of what you should be using on your Cosmo, I would say her true weapon is pretty good on her. If you don't want to use her true weapon, of course, True Exceeds X would be really great, just something to give her some art gauge. I don't think she really needs to build too much damage on herself, but if you want to do that, go right ahead. And for the other 5-star magic on her, I would highly recommend getting Norn's true weapon, because more than likely, if people are using your Cosmo, they're going to be bringing her to Palamecia for the most part. So make it a little bit easier on them. Use the Norn true weapon so you can get the paralysis resist down, and you can make it to where Cosmo can actually paralyze the bosses more frequently. And now Joker Celia, the real boss of the mines here. She's pretty much just like Cosmo, but just more team viability, being able to give her team art gauge, and also being able to apply a crit resist down debuff on the enemy, meaning that in most fights, you're going to be able to crit majority of the time, unless the boss has some type of crit res by default. Not only just that, just like Cosmo, she scales with stats effects. Her stats effect though is freeze, and the things that inflict freeze in her kit are her skill and her art, which is amazing because you pretty much can spam this consistently if you have good supports on your team like Mako, Haruto, Emperor, whoever. And she can be used against pretty much every single boss, as long as there's not a human killer, and as long as there's not a boss that negates water damage or crit damage, or I guess magic damage. You can take her into those boss fights and just nuke every single boss in the game with this unit alone. Like, her damage potential is through the roof. So if you have her, make sure you use her on your friends list. Not only just make sure you use her, make sure you have these type of equips on her. I'm talking about her true weapon will be extremely good. Rock like an Alma's hat or a True Exceeds X or a Victoire's cat suit for the other 5-star magic. And for the last 4-star support, you could either rock like an Arc Ignite or you could rock a Finn Aloha short. Now we're pretty much done with all the heavy hitters, but let's talk about some characters that are kind of some unsung heroes when it comes to the mines. First and foremost, we have Norn. Norn is one of the OG mines units. She's really great because she's an Archgener. She's not only an Archgener, she's also a unit that can paralyze, which is one of the best things that you can use against Omega Palamecia and regular Palamecia. So if you don't have any other character on this list, more than likely you have Norn. Highly recommend putting her on, and make sure you have her true weapon equipped. And for the other items you could be using on her, 5-star defense, just rock out with something that's going to give your team a lot of damage resist. And for the 4-star support, rock out with like an Arc Ignite, Finn Aloha shorts, Keon, something like that, and you will be golden. I know she's not the most exciting unit, but I mean, she gets the job done. She works when she's needed. That's the biggest thing. Now, the next character that I'm going to be recommending here is actually a character that I haven't seen a lot of, and I'm actually surprised because of the amount of people that are requesting this character as a friend unit right now, and that is actually Priestess. Now, why is Priestess seeing a surge in popularity? The reason why Priestess is seeing such a surge right now is because of the newest boss that just got released in Global, which is Wilkes. Mine's Wilkes requires you to blind her, and also she negates all type of overtime Archgen, which means Priestess is actually a straight counter to her. Priestess does burst art gauge. She doesn't rely on overtime Archgen, and she can also inflict a blind on that art that does give you burst art gauge. And that's the main use for her. I think some people may opt in to use her in other boss fights, but mainly she is the go-to when it comes to Will. So you may not get too many like people using you, but the people that do use you will greatly appreciate it when they come up against Wilkes in the mines. In terms of the equips that you would want to be using on this character, I would say for the 5-star heal, Demonic Wicked Globe, or something like Fina Devil Wings. And then for the 5-star support, I would highly recommend burst Archgen items, not overtime Archgen items. Stuff like Goku uniform, Priestess robes, anything like that would be really great. Now for the last few characters that I would recommend here, which shouldn't be surprised. I've already mentioned some of them before, but let's talk about the jack of all trades, some of the best characters that you can use no matter what, pretty much against every single boss in the game. One, we have Haruto. Haruto is an amazing support character, giving your team Archgen, giving your team arch damage, and also being able to heal your team by a ton. He's overall just a great character, and there's not much else to say about him. In terms of what you would want to run on him, 5-star magic, highly recommend you get his true weapon. After his true weapon, I actually would recommend going true EX gate here. And in terms of 4-star heal, I myself would recommend going Keratos most of the time, just so the team has a cleanse, just in case if you do fight an enemy that's going to be able to poison you or burn you or something like that. Having that cleanse would be really great. Next, we have the one and only Mako. Pretty much the exact same thing that I said for Haruto, except there is no weakness to using this character. Really, the only bosses that actually counter Mako are the Ice Giant and Wilkes. Every other boss in the mines, Mako has free reign. You can use her literally everywhere. And why wouldn't you? She stacks with every single arch center in the game. She has healing in her kit. She also buffs up arch damage, and she has a damage res down on her art. And she's also able to reduce the enemy's action speed, which is extremely underrated. In terms of what you want to be rocking on your Mako, highly recommend that you use her true weapon or just a regular Goku uniform. In terms of the 5-star heal, Ina Devil Wings, Demonic with Glow, best 2 options in my opinion. And for the 4-star physical, if you have it, B3 Claw, best in slot for. If you don't have that, then Mako Knuckle will be pretty solid, or just any other type of arch shin or skill CT reduction item. And then last but not least, this may be surprising to some of you, but I still will mention her just because she is still good, even though, you know, Emperor and everybody else's came out. Juno. I don't use Juno too much anymore when it comes to the mines, but she does have some uses here and there, and she's definitely not a bad character if you have to use this unit. She's an arch general. She's able to do some decent damage still. She also has 100% accuracy, so she's great against any boss that has evasion. Also, she's a magic damage dealer, which is extremely good, especially if you're fighting a boss like Odious, because Odious counters physical damage. And yeah, she's great. The only reason why you wouldn't use Juno is if you're already using another type B arch general, and if the boss counters demon units, or if it counters dark damage or something like that. Apart from that, you can use Juno anywhere you want to. In terms of what you want to be rocking on her, you want to be rocking her true weapon, true EX gate, because more arch gen, more crit damage, and also it makes it kind of like the same way how it was with Haruto. It makes it to where she can get into her true art a lot quicker. And then for the 4-star support, Arc Ignite, Keon, Finaloha shorts, something like that, and you're golden. And that's actually my list. That would be what I would consider to be some of the best units you can use in the mines. Now with this list, these aren't the only units that I would say are good mines units. There are a lot of characters in the game that I would consider very strong mines units, but these are the ones that really stand out to me, and these are the ones that I'm turning to majority of the time. Of course, if you guys would like to recommend any other type of mines unit or anything like that, please leave it down below in the comment section. Who knows, there may be a hidden gem that I missed somewhere along the way. Either way though, that is going to be it for this video. Thank you all for coming out. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure you drop a like, comment, subscribe. Also, if you enjoyed this video, highly recommend you check out either one of the videos popping on your screen right now. Great content, guarantee you'll love them. And oh yeah, one more thing, don't forget to drink water.